All right, I did want to go over the answers and the solutions to those last few problems on page 58. My students are gone. This is something that, again, is optional because you should be pretty good with gross profit, loss, net profit, profit margin, stocks, bonds. This is all the stuff we talked about most recently. So it should be really fresh in your mind. In the last video reviews, I wanted to make sure I reviewed things where it's been a little while since we talked about them. But if you're wanting the extra practice, the problems are there. Let's take a look at them. Seniors buy an 18-pack box of candy bars for $15.50, and they sell each candy bar for $1.50. Find their gross profit. Well, you'll remember that gross profit is simply how much was the selling price, or the sales, you might say, minus what was the cost. Well, it says they spent how much for the box of candy bars? They spent $15.50. That's cost. What a business spends, in this case the seniors are the business, what the business spends is cost. What the customers spend is sales or selling price. And the selling price is $1.50 a bar. Well, there's 18 candy bars. And if all the bars sold for $1.50 each, you're going to find that to be $27. So we simply subtract $27 worth of sales minus $15.50 worth of cost, and the gross profit is $11.50. Should be a pretty straightforward problem there. Hopefully you got that. As we look at problem 43, by the way, I should say this at the beginning, if you haven't worked the problems yet, make sure you work them first. Then use this to check your answers. That'll be of more benefit to you. Now, I think it's still perhaps beneficial to watch it worked out. So much more beneficial if you work them yourself first. Number 43, seniors bought a 6-pack of mustard-flavored soda for $15. Okay, now in fairness to the seniors, the mustard-flavored soda that we had this year was not actually purchased by the seniors. But for those watching who may not have actually been here at Grace, during Spirit Week, we had unusual flavors of soda available for sale. Some of them good, like peaches and cream and things like that that you don't normally see in the soda aisle. And then some of them very strange, like pickle, and one of them was mustard. That was actually the last one. Nobody wanted the mustard soda. So anyway, in this instance, the seniors supposedly spend $15. They bought them for $15 to turn around and sell. So the cost to the seniors is $15 for 6 bottles of mustard-flavored soda. They wanted to sell the soda at $3 a bottle. And they got nothing. So they're like, you know what? If we lower the price, maybe someone will be like, you know what? I'll try it just as a dare, and then I'll make my friends try it, and it'll be funny, and we'll throw up and laugh at each other. I don't know. But finally, 50 cents a bottle. It's like, yes, it sells. Well, 6 bottles selling at 50 cents a bottle. It's better than no sales, granted, but it's still only $3 in sales. 6 times 50 cents. Well, in that case, we're not talking about profit. We're talking loss. We have to flip this on our head and say that lost is the cost minus sales. It cost them $15 and they only made $3 in sales. What is the loss? $12. If you're coming over here, you would say that there's a negative $12 profit. Negative profit is another way of expressing loss. So what was their loss? $12. Hopefully you had that. Number 44, I think, is a really good problem because it helps us to see some new things here. Helps us to understand the full process. So 42, 43, okay, good. Making sure we understand profit, loss kind of stuff. But 44 is a really good problem. So hopefully you've thought this one through and worked through it well. Bob buys an old bike at a yard sale for $25. His goal is to turn around and sell that same bike. All right? He buys the bike for $25. That is his cost. And he plans to sell the bike for $120. And if you just look at those two numbers, that is some amazing profit. $95 of gross profit. But what's gross is he don't make $95. Are you kidding me? All right, because he's got a whole lot of extra costs, additional expenses that are not part of the original cost. Extra costs are called, now granted, in a normal business, overhead wouldn't be these kinds of things, but in this instance, this is the overhead. He had to repaint the bike, 12 bucks. He had to wax the bike, $6. He had to get a new bike chain, $9. He had to get the lubricant for the bike chain, $6. And he had to get a new bike seat because it was, you know, kind of worm-eaten and rotted and stuff like that, $30. Well, that's a lot of overhead right there. You add up all this overhead, let's see, what is that? $63? $63 worth of overhead? That's a whole lot. Well, the first thing I asked you for, number one, is what is his gross profit? Well, remember, if gross profit doesn't account for any of this, he sells the bike for $120, he only paid $25. As I said a moment ago, his gross profit's $95. But his net profit's a different story because his total cost, his true cost, was $88. So really, for his net profit, we say he sold the bike for $120 and he ended up spending a total of $88 to get that bike in the first place. His net profit comes then to $32. Another way you could have done this is you could have looked at the gross profit and said, he should have made $95, but because of $63 worth of expenses, subtract the 63, he winds up with $32. So two ways to think of net profit. You can either think of net profit as the sales minus the combined cost and overhead, which is the way I taught it to you. But if you've already found gross profit, right, that's sales minus cost, if you were to want, you could find the net profit by taking, okay, what's the gross profit? Okay, now take the overhead off of that number. These both work. These both work for net profit, just the way you want to approach it. Whatever you think is easy, whatever makes the most sense to you. All right, and then finally is profit margin. Well, remember, profit margin is always net profit over sales. His net profit was $32. His sales were $120. And so if we divide 32 by 120, we should get, I've got here 26.6 repeating percent. Most of you probably rounded to 27% profit margin. And it's a little lower than he would have liked. I don't know that when he bought the bike, he was thinking of a new bike seat until he fixed everything else. And it's like, you know, that bike seat, I can see the foam, the padding on it's kind of getting, worn off. The cover's getting worn off, and kind of see where moth holes are starting to form. I just need to get a new bike seat. So you can fix it. I've got a new bike seat, and there you go. All right. Hopefully, problem 44 makes sense. Well, 45 builds on it. It says, what if? What if instead of selling it for 120, Bob's like, you know what? My friend needs a new bike. I'm slashing prices. You know what, friend? I will sell it to you for only 80. You see a problem? What did he actually pay for this bike? This was his cost for the bike. Yes, he paid 25, but he really paid 88 because of all that overhead. Well, if he only sells it for 80, his cost and overhead together exceed, means they are more than, his cost plus overhead exceeds the sale. That means he's taking a loss. His loss would have been $8. Hopefully, you got that as well there for number 45. So that's kind of our review of profit loss. Hopefully, those problems make sense. If they make sense and you got them, you're in good shape for the test tomorrow. If you didn't got them, you maybe want to rework them and then rewatch the video. Do what you need to do to be ready for this test. Let's move on to stocks and bonds. Number 46, Mr. Spielman buys 200 shares of stock in Wendy's through a no commission, no fee online brokerage firm. Okay, so he doesn't have to pay any brokerage fees. That's awfully nice. Quotation was 21.83. How much did he spend? Well, remember, quotation is the price for one share of stock. He's buying 200 shares. So hopefully you knew on 46 to multiply the 21.83 quotation, or stock quote, which means $21.83, and hopefully you multiplied that by 200. And you should have gotten for number 46 that he spent $4,000 $366 on this Wendy's stock. Well, number 47, after 6 months, he only made 50 cents in dividends. That's it. Plus 50-cent dividend. He's like, 50 cents? Are you kidding me? From all 200 shares, I only get 50 cents? This is stupid. What is going on with Wendy's? Well, there's a reason he only got 50 cents in dividends. Wendy's wasn't doing real good. In fact, Wendy's stock quote has dropped because they need to get more investors on board. Investors aren't paying $21.83 anymore for their quote. Now investors are only paying $19.4 or $19.40 as the stock quote. He's like, you know what? I think this ship is sinking. They make Baconator commercials on TV, and they got, what's his face, the Heisman guy, Caleb Williams in on their commercials, but like, it's just not doing it for me. It's not moving the needle. I need to unload this stock. So when the stock quote is $19.40, he decides to sell all 200 shares. So that's money he's getting, right? So that's money, so 50 cents dividends, that's money he's getting. He's also getting $19.40 a share. Now, it's not as much as he paid in the first place, but he's still getting something for it. It's not total loss. We're not losing all $4,366. So he gets back, when we multiply, another $3,880. So total, he's gotten $3,880.50. Yet remember, he paid $4,366 at number 46. Well, he paid more than he got back. That means he lost money. So we have to subtract, and you should have found his loss to be $485.50. $485.50 for your answer there. Hopefully that makes sense on stocks. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that on the exam the stock problem is going to involve a loss, okay? This example problem did, but again, we've worked a lot of stock problems lately where there's been a capital gain. Here, there's a capital loss. Technically, the capital loss was $489 because the 50 cents is what threw that off a little bit with the dividend. But anyway, there is very possibly going to be capital gains on the exam, or on the test rather, not just loss. Well, let's take a look at 48, 49, 50, which specifically deal with bonds. Bonds. And Mr. Spielman is also investing in bonds because he wants to diversify his portfolio. And so Columbus, the city where I teach, is selling municipal bonds, trying to raise money for a new football stadium. And they're selling $1,000 bonds. And they're selling $1,000 bonds for only $975. Not too bad. Now you have to wait, it says 5 years. Maturity date's 5 years away. But you know in 5 years you're going to make a $25 profit right there, right? You're only paying $975, you gonna get $1,000, right? So it's a 5-year wait, but you know you're gonna get 25 bucks out of it. Per bond, by the way. And notice it says he bought 3 bonds. So we'll kind of keep that thought in the back of our mind. The initial question is, how much did he spend? How much did he have to pay? Well, if you bought 3 bonds, and the market value, the price you pay for the bond, is $975. We just multiply by 3, and we should have gotten $2,925 is what he paid to get the bonds in the first place. Now we know at the end of all this, he's going to get $3,000. So just keep that thought in the back of your mind. He's going to get $3,000 when it's all said and done. But while he's waiting for the maturity date to happen, he's going to get interest payments at the end of each year. Annual coupon payments, remember. So number 49 asks us about the coupon payments. That's money that he gets. He's going to get coupon payments. And he's going to get, remember for coupon payments, that's interest, so I equals PRT. Remember that the principal here is the face value, the par value, not the value he paid. Not $975, the full $1,000 that's printed on that bond. That's the principal. The rate is 2.25%. So we're going to make that 0.0225. And obviously, if it's annual payments times a year, so for each bond, each year, you multiply these numbers, and really it's a boink, 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 3 places that way, isn't it? You're going to get 22.5 every year for every bond. Well, we got to make that money, right? So $22.50 every year for every bond. Well, how many bonds? He bought 3. And how many years? Maturity date's 5 years away. So if we multiply by 3, we find that every year he gets $67.50, and we multiply that by 5 years, we're going to find that he gets $337.50 in coupon payments. Now remember, he not only gets these coupon payments every year for 5 years, but at the end of those 5 years, he also gets back $3,000. So total, he's going to get $3,337.50, right? Now that's not how much he makes, that's how much he gets. He paid this a while back, right? By the time it matures, it was 5 years ago. He paid them this much in the first place. So when it says how much does he make, it's really asking what's his profit. And when we subtract how much he got from the city of Columbus minus how much he paid to the city of Columbus in the first place, you should find that he has a profit of $412.50. All right, hopefully going over these problems just gives you that little bit of extra review that you needed to really understand stocks and bonds, profit and loss, and hopefully this is going to help you do really well on test number 9. Again, test number 9 is going to cover everything from pages 45, from pages 45 to 58. Pages 45 to 58. I said this in the last video, what I encourage my students in the classroom to do, I'm encouraging you to do it now if you're watching. Go back, reread over each of those blurbs. Now that we've talked through so many problems. The last time we read it, you hadn't done any problems yet. It didn't really make that much sense. Read through it again and see if it makes more sense now. Make note of bold terms, bolded comments, bolded statements. And once you've read through all the little blurbs and thought about it in terms of the practice problems we've done, go back to this terms review. It's going to really help you on the test tomorrow. Cover up this section, or even fold the page back, so that way you can't see your answers anymore. And see if you can answer these questions correctly, and then check against the answers you've already corrected as we went over it on video. It's been fun teaching this financial literacy supplement. There have been moments, certainly, where, this is my first time teaching 7th graders. And so there have been moments where I've had to remind myself, okay, they're 7th graders. It's going to take them a little bit for this to really sink in, and that's okay. But the goal of this was to help you be prepared for life. The goal of this was to help you really understand how money works in a lot of different ways. Investments, business, insurance, home finance, budgeting, compound interest, amortized loans, income in various forms, writing checks, checking accounts and savings accounts, all that kind of stuff. My goal was you're going to be more prepared for life as a result of this. So even if, and some of my students, they've seen their grades dip just a little bit, not too bad, but they've seen their grades dip a little bit during this segment. That's certainly not my goal to see grades drop. But in even a year from now, is anyone going to care what you made in 7th grade math? Not really. But in 10 years from now, are you going to care that you have this knowledge and are able to live a more functional, well-adjusted adult life? Absolutely. So I know this tended to be, especially some people who don't get terms well, right? I got some students and terms are just hard. They can do all the math, but man, it's hard to keep track of all those terms. And I try to review, you've seen the videos, right? Try to review, try to make sure you know these terms, try to give you opportunities to review them. Do your best. And at the end of the day, if you've done your best, as you've worked through this segment, that's what God is pleased with. That's what God's pleased with. And my ultimate goal isn't, I want every student to make an A. My goal is I want every student to learn and be better prepared for life. So again, if your grades dipped a little bit, you'll be fine. Next quarter, we'll pull it back up. You've been doing good all year, okay? But hopefully, you feel like you understand life math better than you did 30 lessons ago. And that's my goal. All right, do well on the test tomorrow. Students of mine who are in the classroom, I'll see you tomorrow as we take this test. Those watching, you'll see me in the next lesson as you get ready to take your test. Test 9 over pages 45 to 58.